Go until the buses are off the street.
Driffield, South Yorkshire was a quiet place to Russell Webster when he lived here for many years. After his business was destroyed by fire and his marriage failed, he left for America. Recently, he returned to the town to start afresh in new home and business premises right behind his old workplace. But it hasn't turned out to be the tranquil haven he had hoped for.
Hello, Mind World. Twig, thanks for coming back, mate. Listen, I've got this catalogue just about as far as I can get it.
He specialises in the production and distribution of self-awareness tapes.
Chain ever discovered.
Guides to getting through life in words and music. All designed to provide advice on coping with problems.
In the beginning, there was desire.
He says he needs the right environment to work effectively, and he never expected to find himself engaged in a battle over noise with his neighbour, the discotheque Hooters. The focus of his complaints is the manager of the disco, Scott Thomas.
Initially, when we opened it first, there were some complaints from local neighbours, but since then we've not had any complaints. The only complaint we actually have now is from Mr. Webster, who lives 20 feet away from a nightclub.
I know there are people that would say I'm stupid for moving into next door to a nightclub, but I did think about it. And I also know the environmental health have been in. They forced them to do a certain amount of soundproofing and put limiters in the place. I'm 45 feet from their back door, and I would expect to hear a certain amount of, boom, 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 boom. What I don't expect to hear, through very, very carefully soundproof windows, double glazed windows, is every word the DJ's saying, listening to him winding me up, if you like.
And it's not just loud music that Russell complains about. There are other noises which disturb him.
It's very easy to say that you hear this, you hear that, you hear the next thing, but does he really? I don't know. I mean, so we've had numerous tests done by the environmental health, and they have been all the way around the building, outside the doors, outside the back door, everywhere, and they've done the tests and said that, everything's okay. I mean, so what does he really expect?
It's just impossible. I can't do any work. I'm writing things down here and I'm listening to what the DJ is saying next door. It's absolutely crazy.
Get your ass on the dance floor right about now. Everybody's kung fu fighting. That might be what's happening with me and Russell at the end of the night. Who knows? Check out this, sending out a big message to Russell Webster next door. You are the guy, but you don't know what you're talking about. Don't ever think you can stop the music. You can't stop the music, Russell.
Well, there you go. So what more can I say? I'm flabbergasted.
Over months, this row has escalated out of all proportion.
It's not just about noise, it's about broken glass all over the place. It's about the misabuse of what, from my part, was a very, very friendly gesture initially. Because when I bought the land, I inherited their skips on the land and their bottle bins, but I allowed them to keep them there. But all they've done is totally and utterly abuse the situation. They empty them out 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, waking us up, when they're full, they pile them up outside the doors, and it's just, every single time I've asked them to do something about it, they've just blatantly ignored me. Until one night, at 3 o'clock in the morning, when the young lad came to empty the bins, I said, please do not do this tonight, you're going to wake us up. Empty them in the afternoon. Who then went and got Scott, the manager, who paraded his staff in front of me and blatantly ignored me, even though I said, listen, if you come on my land, it's trespass. And he trooped them across and emptied the bins. And we have very, very strong words about it that night.
At that point, he was quite abusive towards me. So if he wanted to speak to me at that time, then possibly he shouldn't have been abusive, and he shouldn't have called me the names that he did do. Possibly if he came back the next day to talk to me, obviously I would have been looking for an apology at the verbal abuse that he gave to me. I would be looking for that first of all. But if he wanted to speak to me, he could have spoke to me the next morning.
After that incident, Russell Webster had had enough and decided that he had to employ another, more effective method of making himself heard. He retrieved from storage some equipment from his old business, all 5,000 watts of it.
And one night I was just sat here and I thought, I'll give them a taste of their own medicine. I cranked my own music up and I went and sat outside because it was a nice warm night.
It was about 3 a.m. I was having a couple of drinks with some of the members of the staff who had just finished work. It was alerted to me that there was some music coming from somewhere. I thought it may have been inside and maybe someone had left a compact disc player on or something. I walked all the way around the building and there was nothing on. All of a sudden I heard a banging on the bottom fire exit. I then went out there to find Mr. Webster sitting outside his premises with the music blaring. I asked Mr. Webster what he was doing. He then said something about, well, I've got to live with it, so you're going to have to live with it.
Scott comes charging across and says, throws his jacket on the ground and says, right, let's sort this out here and now, you and I. And I'm feeling a bit threatened at this stage, because I'm not, really of the violent type. And it went on, and it eventually ended up here in the living room, and I was, quite seriously intimidated and threatened by him, to the point that I felt, OK, this is just going far, far too far. Let's try and sort this out. And off he goes to the door, and I try and calm it down, and I used the word ignorant. And he took it totally out of context, and the next thing I know, he flies back at me saying, you're calling me ignorant, and it was just like out of all proportion.
I wouldn't say I was violent. Obviously I wasn't happy. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. I had a busy night. The last thing I wanted to do was have to deal with Mr. Webster playing music at 3 in the morning. But I wasn't violent. I'm not a violent person.
I find the man totally intimidating, and furthermore, I don't understand what rules he plays by.
Their battle is still unresolved, and there seems no end in sight.
It's not about bottle bins or the noise level. What it's really about is a total failure to communicate on Scott's behalf. He's abused the situation, yet I've tried to talk to him. He has ignored letters that were hand-delivered to him. At the end of the day, relationships break down. Children don't talk to their parents for years. Businesses fail. If you can't communicate with people, you've got nothing at all.
The problem can be resolved very easily. We can sit around the table and talk about it. Obviously there's some stipulations for that. Obviously I don't want any foul and abusive language or anything said about my character.
And to me the ironic thing is that right at this moment in time, because of all the trouble, I'm 3 to 4 weeks behind schedule on delivering a script from a publisher on communication.
Were awarded to Australian companies.